Good afternoon from the truck stop. I'm in Wisconsin, and I ran out of hours yesterday. I ended up with only about an hour and a half on my 70 today, so that wasn't enough time to go anywhere. And it was kind of annoying that yesterday my day was so I didn't have very many hours left, but they ended up giving me a local run, so I still ended up like barely having time left to get to a place to stop. And it's always like that. Even when I'm low on hours, they find a way to fill them. They'll do that. I don't think they love the idea of me running recaps, because that means that I have shorter days. Like, I don't have a full 14-hour clock every day. I'm going to end up having, like, tomorrow I think I'll have 12, and to me that's great, because it's like I still have a good solid long day and enough time to get some good miles in, but I don't feel the need to kill myself. And I don't think there's a drastic difference in the money that I'm gonna make, you know, from having a 12-hour day or a 14-hour day. It's just how hard I'm gonna run. The other thing is, I actually had talked before in a previous video about switching back to the regional account that I was on. I was on a Midwest regional account, and I am switching back to it for a couple of different reasons. But one reason is that I'm being sent to locations on the national account where there's so much traffic that I can't get miles. So you would think, oh, I'm going on these longer distance runs, you know, I'm going to end up doing better financially, but it doesn't end up working that way, because it just takes longer to get the load delivered, because I end up sitting in traffic. Or like, I was sitting on I-80 the other day for like 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, because there were two separate jackknife trucks up ahead of me. And that's what happens when you drive too fast for conditions, my friends. So I will continue to drive like a grandma and not make the miles I want to make when I'm in those weather conditions. But anyway, that, and then being sent to places like on the East Coast where there's just shit tons of traffic all the time, and you're not moving that much. Or like, I got stuck in a huge jam coming through the Chicago area day before yesterday, and that was what ate my clock, really ate time, and made it so I ended up parking with like 20 minutes left on my 14 that day. These are just constant issues, you know. These are the inherent problems with being paid by the mile, because, you know, things need to be transported in high traffic regions of the country, and that means it's going to be slow going, and therefore you're not able to make a decent living doing it if you're a company driver like I am. So I was like, why put myself through all the stress of going to the East Coast, going to places like I went recently to Dallas, and not being able to park anywhere, not having the powers of levitation to somehow make my truck not need to park, because it's like, fuck, man, that shit is stressful. Side note, there's a Starbucks next to me, and I'm real happy that I got to get a Starbucks drink today. Treating myself. So, and I did some makeup, which I love doing, and it was nice to be able to do that. So in this video, what I actually wanted to talk about was going back to the video that I just put out where I was talking about the dispatcher. But one of my viewers did me what I think of as a kindness, and they messaged me, they DM'd me on Instagram, which I invite anybody to do. If you want to send me a message directly, I always put my Instagram. I don't really use Instagram that much, except to like look at cute animal videos and randomly message a few people, but I rarely post on it. But I use it for communication mainly. So this person sent me a private message saying, you should consider taking that video down, because even if your dispatcher never sees it, it doesn't show you in a very good light. And I wanted to address this. I thought it was really kind of them to say that. And the reason why is, number one, something I learned in my brief career as a journalist, which I'm so glad I had this experience, is if you put out content that people find unpalatable for any reason, and they take the time to tell you that, it's important to listen to it, especially if you're interested in being a successful content creator, which I am. You want to get yourself an audience. You want to share important information. Like, I want people to know about the plight of truck drivers, not necessarily my plight, but a broader, you know, this is kind of some description of what happens in this industry to new drivers and this and that. If you want people to hear you, it's really important to listen to criticism and think about it, and actually like figure out if you could do things differently or whatever. So what I wanted to say was, I'm not gonna take the video down, but I agree that it doesn't show me in the best light. And it's funny because I had a hard time getting myself to like leave that video up, because a part of me didn't want to post it, because I don't like to say negative things about people or like put out negative content. Like, I never want my channel to be about drama. I think that is unhelpful. Like, it doesn't put anything forward. It doesn't like lift anybody up. It doesn't help the conversation is what I'm getting at. But I decided to leave it because, number one, I want people to see the sort of different dynamics of my personality. So like, am I always a nice person? No. No one is always, you know, kind-hearted and cool. Like, we all can be jerks sometimes, right? But also, I wanted to leave it because interpersonal conflict in this business is such a significant factor. And I think that it's something that, you know, when you hear a story like that, I think it helps people to like understand that part of doing this job that makes it so challenging is the people that you have to work with and that you depend on to a certain extent to get your job done. People who are dictating things to you, people who are reprimanding you if you make mistakes, the way that they talk to you, all of that. There's a lot of truckers in this industry who are who are older than me, who would never tolerate bullshit from a dispatcher. They wouldn't tolerate someone being condescending toward them because they've been in the working world for a long time. They just don't have, they don't want to defer to somebody. And I kind of feel like that too. Not that I try to put myself in the place of like truckers who've been trucking for 20 years. I don't mean that. But I will say for myself, I've been in the working world for long enough. I'm at that point where you start to have managers that are younger than you. And my willingness to be deferential to people just because their role is technically above mine is very small. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with that. I think that it's sort of like a sad joke, but it's sort of like a universal understanding that the people that end up in management are often people who are not ideal for those roles for whatever reason. And a lot of us have to just put up with it, and it's hard. I see myself as an equal. So even if someone is put in a position where they're technically like my boss, I don't think of them as above me in the sense that I'm not gonna not be myself with that person. Does that make sense? I understand that they have maybe power over me. Like, I'm not gonna be like, fuck you, you know, not that. But at the same time, I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, like, I'm not gonna make myself smaller for them because I'm very smart and I've been through a lot of shit in my life, and I don't think that any person is better than any other fucking person. I just don't. You know, I don't need to like, I'm not gonna lick their boots, okay? You're not gonna get any of that from me. You're gonna need to go somewhere else for that shit. But that all said, I also don't want to disrespect people in like a public forum, and I felt, like I said, when I put that video out, I felt like it was kind of on the border, you know, where I don't even want to say, if I'm talking critically about someone, I'm usually pretty good at speaking diplomatically and kind of talking in more vague terms. But I just know that so many of us have these issues, like these stories about these dispatchers or others that we've dealt with. I don't want to be petty. I don't want to be small and put out small energy like that, or like petty energy, because again, it doesn't promote any progress for me or anybody else. I want my channel to be useful and generally positive, because I think we all help each other. Like, the energy that we put out, it grows, it goes beyond ourselves. And especially when you're putting information out there, you're spreading energy, good or bad, I guess. So anyway, it's just something I wanted to talk about. And then another thing I was thinking about and talking about with a friend of mine who's also a truck driver is the idea that part of the reason why when you're a truck driver, you can get so affected by a dispatcher or someone else at the trucking company or another driver, people that you interact with, is because we're so isolated. So when you do interact with someone and it's a negative interaction, it's crazy how much that can really affect you. And it's a funny thing. It's like I talked about in a recent video where a lot of the guys that are truck drivers come across as kind of gruff and abrasive and stuff, but I think that a lot of them are much more sensitive than they appear on the surface. And I think that when you don't get to interact with people as much in general, because you're in an isolated job, when you do interact with someone and it's a negative interaction, it's like it hurts more, it affects you more. So that has been so true for me. I really felt it when I worked at the delivery service. There were certain, because it was me and then all dudes, you know, And there were a couple of guys that I worked with that were fucking phenomenal, that we would drive together for like 10 hours, 11 hours, whatever, and we'd be doing heavy lifting together, so moving all kinds of furniture. I still love that, by the way, so much that I daydream all the time about starting a company doing furniture delivery, because I love it. It sounds crazy, but it's if you're a really physical person, you can understand why it's enjoyable. And to me, it's I always said it's like Tetris meets Operation, the game Operation, where you're moving heavy, awkwardly weighted objects through expensive spaces. So basically you're moving expensive furniture that's usually brand new, not always, but expensive furniture that's nice, through the halls and corridors of rich people's homes, and you can't bump anything into anything, so you have to learn how to balance weight. I was in fucking amazing shape when I was doing that job. I was ripped and I loved it, and it was also just, it's fun. It's like strategizing, and then team lifting to me is fun. It's really fun. But doing that job, spending long periods of time talking with these guys that I would work with, and then interacting here and there with dispatch over, we used to use Slack, which is awesome for any type of like a small business communication. It's great. And we used to use that, and it was funny to me. I would think a lot about how small interactions, when you're doing a kind of job like that where it's sort of looked down upon as like not a real job or whatever, when you have a positive interaction with someone, it makes you feel validated, and it makes you feel like you matter in a way. And it's the same thing when you have a negative interaction, where it's like it affects you more in a negative way. So anyway, long story short, this is turning into a bit of a tangent. Who, me? I appreciate the feedback that is not like, you're awesome, you're great. Like, give me feedback if you think that something is that I said was whack, or that I could have said something differently, or like this person suggested that it didn't really paint me in a good light. I want to hear that, because I want to keep working on making quality content, and also just I want to keep working on being a better person. I don't have the best feeling about putting out content that is sort of picking on a person, but I also just want my content to be reflective of the real life experience of a new truck driver, and that is a very common challenge of this industry. And that makes me think about all these ads for truck driving jobs where it says more home time, more respect. Always uses the word respect. Well, why do you think that is? It's because so many of us do not feel respected. And to be honest with you, I don't really feel respected in the situation that I've been dealing with. And that's part of the reason I'm going back to work on the other account, because it was just a better, the account itself was better. It was a little boring. You know, I didn't get to see as much variety. I went to the same places all the time. And I spent a little too much time driving through the Chicago area. That does suck. Traffic-wise, it just always sucks. And driving a semi in Chicago sucks so much. Yesterday I was back and forth in Milwaukee all day. That wasn't much better. It's better when you find a good fit, when you are simpatico with people that you work with. It's worth it to stick with that and make it work. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going back to that. I think it'll be really good, and I'm sort of biding my time as a company driver. I don't know how long I'll do it for. I know I say that same ass sentence in like every video. I wish I could just get my own truck and do my own thing right now, but I know that is so much harder than I'm making it sound like. There's so many advantages of being a company driver, but the disadvantages are significant, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching. I will catch you on the next one.